Welcome everybody to another Justice is Served Perfectly episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. That's right, today we are definitely going to be seeing justice served on a Florida man. I was going to do the prison tour of Maryland today, the one that I tried to do on the live stream yesterday, but decided to jump into the courtroom. I remember hearing about this story when it first broke out. Y'all ain't gonna believe what he did to his ex-girlfriend and her mom. A lot of people might think that he got over-sentenced, but to me, it was absolute perfection. I would love to hear y'all's input at the end of this one, but before we get into it, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now, let me break down exactly what happened with this individual before we get into the sentencing. Spencer Ross Pearson, 20. Pled guilty to attempted murder and aggravated battery charges in July. His family blamed head trauma he sustained as a high school football star for the attack. Pearson, 18 years old at the time, was stalking his ex. She was left paralyzed from the chest down in the attack. Surveillance video of the attack shows the mother and daughter trying to leave the restaurant as Pearson follows them, eventually rushing towards his ex-girlfriend and stabbing her 15 times. Her mother tried to fight off the attacker and was stabbed in the forehead and leg as well. A bystander who intervened was also slashed but was able to stop the onslaught. Pearson then cut his own neck before he was taken into custody. Now, as the trial progresses, Pearson's defense team sought 12 years in prison followed by 15 years of supervision, but the judge decided on a tougher punishment. Now, with all that being said, let's jump into the courtroom and witness him speak before getting sentenced. That's the victim, the ex-girlfriend.
Would you like to come to the witness stand? It's up to you. You prefer. All right.
Your Honor, I'm here before you today to take responsibility for my actions of June 3rd, 2023. And most importantly, I'm here to express my sincerest apology to Madison, Ms. Roger, and Mr. Armstrong. I'm sure June 3rd was the worst day of their lives. It was also the worst day of mine and always will be. On this day, I hurt 3 innocent people. I think of my terrible crimes committed every second of every day. It's on my mind constantly, and this will never, ever change. I pray that Madison, Ms. Roger, and Mr. Armstrong make full recoveries. I can't begin to imagine what I've put them through and the negative effects I've had on everyone involved. I understand the anger and hatred they all have for me. I will never understand any negativity or ill will directed towards my family regarding this subject. They did not do this. I did. There are good people trying to do good in this world, not evil. My parents tried their absolute best to get me help with the limited knowledge and the limited time they had. They are completely devastated, and they want their son to get help more than anything. Your Honor, I try my best to live with myself after what I've done, but I just don't know how. I need serious help, and I have for a long time. And I'm so sorry for what this has come to, and I'm so sorry for my actions. I ask for forgiveness, and I ask for mercy. I ask for the chance to get help so I can return to my family and do good in this world. Thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
And now we're going to hear from his attorney to give some closing arguments.
Your Honor, you've heard a lot of testimony and victim impact statements today. We're here because Mr. Pearson entered pleas of guilty to the charges before the court, and he's taken responsibilities for his conduct. And the court's in the unenviable position to sentence Mr. Pearson. But sentencing in a courtroom does not fulfill the purpose of vengeance. It's to impose punishment, a just punishment. And in doing so, the court doesn't take into account just the facts and circumstances of the case, the crime, but also the characteristics of the defendant in fashioning that just sentence. And this is a situation where there's a young man, barely an adult, that in the fallout from a relationship with his girlfriend was extremely broken. And it's tragic. It is absolutely tragic what happened. Mr. Armstrong, Ms. Roger, and most certainly Ms. Shemitz didn't deserve this at all. They didn't deserve to have this visited upon them at all. And we know that there's going to be punishment imposed for the crimes that are before the court. But the question becomes, what is the just punishment? And so comparing the horrible nature of the crimes against the characteristics of the defendant, and to borrow federal parlance, to impose a punishment or a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary to fulfill the purposes of sentencing, we have to take into account the characteristics of the defendant. And in doing that, we look to his life in total. And when we look at that life, but for the day of the events, he has lived a good and honorable life. This is a case with the media sitting here in our courtroom that's had press releases and media attention for the last year and a half. It's also a situation where many members of the community would treat Mr. Pearson like a pariah. But that's not necessarily the case here. I've been in cases of similar nature where no one will step forward, maybe even parents on behalf of their loved one. Not this case. In this case, not only Mr. Pearson's family members, but members of the community. 26 in total have submitted character letters on behalf of Mr. Pearson, in addition to the members of his family. And they all echo the same sentiments. You've heard from Mr. and Mrs. Pearson, Spencer's parents. And he has the rest of his family in attendance here today, as well as members of the community that are here to support him. And they've submitted letters to the court. His sister McKenna, who's a student at the University of Florida, writes that he was always exemplified his gentleness and his love for animals, especially dogs, and he is constantly looking out for our youngest brother, Rhett. Spencer has always had such a good heart, and he was so empathetic for people who would get picked on. She would often overhear parents complimenting Spencer's manners, politeness, and how good he was with younger kids. He was caring, intentional, and kind. His younger brother, Rhett. Spencer was there for me to hang out with and offered a helping hand whenever I needed it. That's from a 14-year-old. His older brother, Colby. Although externally Spencer may seem quiet and reserved, for those of us who know him more closely, he is one of the most kind-hearted people out there. And he concludes his letter with, "Our family is committed to being there for him every step of the way, ensuring that he has the love, support, and resources needed to succeed." Those are his immediate family members, all. And there's myriad other letters from the rest of his family, extended and otherwise. But there's also letters from members of the community that are willing to put their name out there to support Spencer Pearson, because they knew what kind-hearted kid he was. A former football coach, Todd Fordham, coached him in Pop Warner and as well as his middle school days. Spencer was a vital part of the teams he coached and the success we had a team. Spencer was always a great listener, willing to do whatever was asked of him as a player. Spencer worked diligently to be the best player he could be, while always making sure his mindset was team first. Another coach at his high school, Eric Hinkle. While as coach, Spencer was always shy, reserved, and respectful. I do not recall Spencer ever getting agitated, disrespectful, or aggressive towards his coaches or teammates, nor angry in any way during those years I coached him. And Mr. Coach Henkel noted the change that Mr. and Mrs. Pearson testified to as junior and senior year. And he states, this passive and shy personality is why the events of this last year were a tragic surprise to me. His purpose is to let you know that his actions last year did not seem to be characteristic of the young man he knew, and he hopes that whatever you, Your Honor, decide, he is able to receive the help he so obviously and desperately needs.
Look, it's plain to see to me, and I see these type of things happen all the time, maybe not to the extent of stabbing someone 15 times. But guys, man, in high school, they start really falling in love with girls. And unfortunately, a lot of guys and girls will do some wild stuff when their heart is broken. Almost as though it's not them no more. They're controlled by nothing but emotion. Like I said, that's my 2 cents on the situation. Homeboy snapped, and now he's gonna have to pay for it. That's all there is to it. I've had enough of him reading the defendant's character letters. Let's jump right into the sentencing and see what the judge has to say.
Present. Defense is present. Are there any matters that we need to address before the court imposes sentence from the state?
Yes, sir. Can we make sure that everyone has their gas mask available? Because it could get smoky up in this money.
The defense. Is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time, Mr. Kachagas?
No, Your Honor.
Man, whenever a judge does a deep breath like that, there's a long smoke train coming. You got 3 bailiffs at the gate, man, making sure he don't run out of there. You know, he's a football star. He probably got some speed to him.
This court has given this case a tremendous amount of thought. Not just today, but in the days and weeks leading up to this sentencing hearing. This is a difficult case. This court has faced several very difficult cases recently, and this one is no different. The defense in this case has filed a motion and requested for this court to depart below the guideline sentence. As previously stated, the minimum sentence based upon the guidelines is 227.25 months in Florida State Prison.
Jeez.
In analyzing the
200 some months, I think that's like a little less than 20 years. And that's the sentencing guidelines. Keep in mind, they have a little point system that they have to follow. Well, they don't have to follow it every time, but for the most part, they do. It helps to make sure that people get sentenced to the appropriate amount of time. But the judge, in some situations, still has a chance to go under that sentencing amount of 200 some months or above it.
defense's motion and request for the court to downward depart. The defense has presented throughout the course of this sentencing hearing evidence and testimony that would meet the preponderance of the evidence that would permit this court to deviate and downward depart. The court does find that the defense has met its burden, showing the defendant's capacity to appreciate the criminal nature of the conduct, and that he does require some specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is unrelated to substance abuse or addiction or for physical disability, and the defendant is amenable to treatment.
That was a big gulp he just took, man. Usually people that know exactly what they're going to be sentenced to, they can be gulping, they can be doing nothing, man. They're just waiting for it to be done so they could go lay it down. He's definitely showing signs that he's hoping for the best.
I don't know that I agree that this was an unsophisticated manner. I'm not going to find that as to that factor. And I do believe that the defendant is old enough to appreciate the consequences of the offense. So the only factor that the court does find that the defense has met is the fact that he does require some specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is unrelated to substance abuse or addiction or for physical disability. that does not, the analysis of downward departure does not stop at the defense's meeting the threshold and establishing by preponderance of the evidence that there are mitigating circumstances that would permit this court to deviate below that guideline sentence. The second prong of that analysis is whether or not the court should. June 3rd of 2023, the events that unfolded on that afternoon were horrific. This defendant launched a vicious attack on a 17-year-old girl who had done nothing but show him love, and only weeks earlier had done her part to try to save his life when he attempted. The same person that tried to save his life, he violently and viciously attacked. Many folks in this courtroom have declared Kennedy Armstrong a hero. This court has no quarrel with that assessment. Kennedy Armstrong is most certainly a hero.
That, I'm guessing, is the bystander that stopped everything. But he got slashed as well. Either way, homeboy saved her life, man. He's a true hero. Guys like this should be awarded a cool milli by the state. Not tax money, though. Some other fund or something, you know what I mean? But this guy right here, man, shout out to you, my friend. Not all heroes come with the cape.
Kennedy Armstrong a hero. This court has no quarrel with that assessment. Kennedy Armstrong is most certainly a hero. And but for his actions and the actions of Madison's mother, this defendant would have successfully killed Madison Shimmons.
He wouldn't have stopped. For him to stab someone 15 times, he was not going to stop.
That crime, the crime that was described and shown here today, and the result of that crime, and the impact of this crime that it has had on all three of the victims in this case, leads this court to the conclusion that any deviation below the guidelines is inappropriate.
There we go.
So I'm declining and denying the defendant's motion for downward departure.
So even though the defense proved that they could go with a downward departure from the sentencing, the judge decided not to go under the guidelines. So that means he's either going to go with the program of 200 some months, or like I say all the time, above and beyond to kingdom come. Not looking good for him. That's for sure. Where's my smoke button? It's coming. I can smell it already.
I have considered the mitigating circumstances that have been well presented by the defense in this case. Mr. Kuchergis, you have done an excellent job in representing your client and providing this court with mitigation.
Yeah, his attorney did great, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
This court has carefully thought and weighed and considered your client's age, his lack of any prior criminal history, the fact that he was suffering from a depressive, clearly a depressive state of mind when this happened, and his age.
Man, that judge is really struggling to sentence him here, it sounds like.
This court does not impose a sentence based on vengeance.
Oh no.
As was mentioned, that the courts are not here to sentence out of vengeance.
Oh man, when the judge says before sentencing that this sentencing is not based upon revenge, it's because he's checking his hands, man. He's about to give him way more time than he ever or anybody probably ever expected.
The impact that this crime has had on Madison, Jacqueline, and Kennedy, it just far outweighs any of the mitigation that this court has considered.
Far outweighs.
There are just certain crimes that are committed that merit the maximum possible sentence.
Oh man.
To 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder with a weapon. As to counts 1 and 3 of the information, you are adjudicated guilty. You are sentenced to serve the remainder of your life in prison.
Damn. He
As
can't
to count
believe
5,
it. Tunnel
you are
vision.
adjudicated guilty. You are sentenced to serve 30 years in Florida State Prison.
Smoked.
All sentences are to run concurrent with each other. Madam Clerk, please reflect that he has 536 days that he has previously served and impose the standard felony court costs. Mr. Pearson, you have 30 days to appeal the legality of this court sentence. If you wish to appeal but cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Life in prison. Even though he didn't take nobody's life. So that's a question I got for y'all today. Do you feel as though he was over-sentenced? Like I said in the beginning, I felt as though it was perfect. I feel like this guy's a true maniac. The dude stabbed her 15 times. He wasn't going to stop unless that guy stopped him. He would have killed that girl. So yeah, for sure, life sentence. With the possibility of parole or without. What would you have given him if you were the judge? You commit a heinous crime like this, regardless of your age or your criminal history. You're going to penitentiary for a very long time, if not your whole life. Not to mention, he's going to Florida, man. Damn. He's going to have one of the roughest bids of his life, if I were to guess, as soon as those guys find out why he's in there. I wouldn't be surprised within the next 5 or 10 years. I read an article of him getting stabbed to death in prison, or watch a video of him being turned into Susan with pigtails, lipstick, and Skittle eyelashes. I wouldn't be surprised, man. There's a lot of bandits in the Florida prison system. Anyways, I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, like I said in the beginning, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave if you enjoy. And as always, until the next time, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.